Let us begin with an uncomfortable truth, one that most men resist because it threatens the story they tell themselves about being good, genuine, or well-intentioned. In human affairs, intention is invisible, perception is everything. This is where most men fail without ever realizing it. They believe that if their heart is pure, if their motives are sincere, if their feelings are deep, then the outcome should naturally reward them. But the world does not operate on sincerity, it operates on signals, and no thinker understood this more clearly than Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli warned rulers that the people would never judge them by what they meant to do. They would judge them by what appeared to be done, by what could be seen, felt, and interpreted. The same law governs attraction. A woman does not experience your inner intentions, she experiences your behavior, your tone, your timing, your emotional posture. You may intend confidence, but if your voice seeks approval, she perceives uncertainty. You may intend loyalty, but if your actions revolve around pleasing, she perceives dependence. You may intend love, but if your presence feels heavy, she perceives pressure. And perception always wins. This is not cruelty, this is not manipulation, this is human nature operating without mercy or apology. Machiavelli would say that a prince who relies on being understood is already weak, because understanding requires effort from others, and people rarely give effort unless compelled by power or presence in relationships. The same mistake is made daily. Men explain themselves endlessly, they clarify texts, they justify emotions, they reveal fears, hoping to be accepted for their honesty. But honesty without strength does not inspire attraction, it inspires evaluation. A woman unconsciously asks a question long before she asks it out loud: is this man solid, or does he require management? And she answers that question not with logic, but with feeling. If being around you feels calm, grounded, and assured, you are perceived as strong. If being around you feels anxious, reactive, or overly accommodating, you are perceived as uncertain. Your intentions do not change this perception, your explanations do not override it. Machiavelli observed that people forgive cruelty faster than weakness, because cruelty suggests power, weakness suggests risk and attraction. At its core is risk assessment. This is why men who mean well are often dismissed, not because women dislike kindness, but because kindness without authority feels unsafe. A ruler who constantly reassures his people that he is kind reveals that he doubts his own authority. A man who constantly reassures a woman of his feelings reveals that he fears losing her, and fear, once perceived, becomes the defining trait. Perception is built in moments, not declarations. How you handle silence, how you respond to disagreement, how you carry yourself when things do not go your way, these moments speak louder than any promise. Machiavelli taught that appearances must be managed deliberately, not faked, but understood. You cannot control how people judge, but you can control what you project. A man who pauses before reacting appears composed. A man who sets boundaries without anger appears confident. A man who does not rush to be chosen appears valuable. None of this requires cruelty. None of this requires deception. It requires restraint, and restraint is power. Tragedy is that many men believe showing everything proves authenticity, but transparency without structure is chaos in politics. Chaos invites overthrow and attraction. Chaos invites disinterest. Women do not fall for words, they respond to emotional cues: your pace, your certainty, your self-com. And these communicate far more than any confession ever could. Machiavelli would say that those who wish to be loved must first be respected, and respect is born from perception, not intention. When you understand this, you stop trying to convince, you stop pleading to be understood, you stop relying on your inner goodness to do outer work. You begin to move with awareness. You speak less, but with purpose. You give attention, but not compulsively. You act rather than explain, and slowly, without force. Perception changes not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. This is the first law, the law that governs courts, crowns, and hearts alike. Those who master perception command outcomes. Those who cling to intention surrender control. Every empire that collapsed believed it fell because of enemies, but Machiavelli knew better. Kingdoms rot from instability long before they are conquered. The same principle governs attraction. What women seek first is not excitement, romance, or passion. Those come later, if at all. What they seek, often without realizing it, is emotional security, not comfort, not predictability, but stability under pressure. A man is not evaluated by how he behaves when things are easy. He is revealed when things are uncertain. This is where most men unknowingly disqualify themselves. They panic in silence, they unravel during conflict, they seek reassurance when tension appears, and in doing so, they broadcast the one thing that dissolves attraction: instability. Machiavelli observed that people will tolerate many flaws in a ruler: cruelty, ambition, even arrogance, but they will not tolerate chaos: a prince who changes moods daily, who reacts emotionally to every threat, who appears unsure of his own authority, creates fear, not loyalty in relationships. Fear does not mean terror, it means doubt. Doubt about the future, doubt about safety, doubt about leadership. Women do not consciously think in these terms, but they feel them immediately. A man who is emotionally volatile, who collapses at disagreement, who treats every misunderstanding as a crisis, signals that the ground beneath him is unstable, and no one builds a life on unstable ground. Emotional security is not about being gentle, it is about being unshakable. It is the ability to remain centered when challenged, to listen without losing control, to disagree without withdrawing affection. Machiavelli believed that stability was the highest political virtue, because stability creates trust, and trust creates obedience in attraction. Stability creates surrender, not submission, but relaxation. A woman relaxes around a man who is not easily disturbed, who does not require constant validation, who does not shift his identity to please. This relaxation is often mistaken for boredom by inexperienced men, but it is the foundation of desire. Chaos excites briefly, stability endures. Many men confuse emotional expression with emotional regulation. They believe sharing every feeling proves depth, but unfiltered emotion is not depth. It is leakage. A ruler who announces every fear invites rebellion. A man who announces every insecurity invites distance. Machiavelli never advised suppressing emotion, he advised mastering it. There is a difference. Mastery means emotion exists, but does not govern it. Means you feel tension, but do not act from it. You experience uncertainty, but do not transmit it. This is what creates emotional safety. A woman tests this unconsciously, not with words, but with pressure, silence, delay, disagreement, boundaries. These are not games, they are assessments. How does he respond when things are unclear? Does he remain himself, or does he unravel? A man who remains calm communicates power without saying a word. Machiavelli understood that people align with those who can contain disorder, not those who contribute to it. If your presence increases emotional volatility, you will be seen as a liability. If your presence absorbs tension, you will be seen as an anchor. This is why men who try too hard often fail. They believe effort creates security, but effort fueled by anxiety creates the opposite. Security is not built by reassurance. It is built by consistency, by being the same man in peace and in conflict, by responding, not reacting, by choosing silence over emotional spillage. Machiavelli warned against ruling through love alone, because love is conditional, but stability commands loyalty even in uncertainty and attraction. Love that lacks stability collapses. Stability without love creates the space for love to grow. Women are not searching for perfection, they are searching for containment. Someone who can hold tension without transferring it. Someone whose emotional state does not depend on immediate validation. When you understand this, you stop chasing emotional closeness prematurely. You stop flooding conversations with reassurance. You stop demanding certainty before it exists. You become slower, calmer, more deliberate, not because you are cold, but because you are composed, and composition is leadership. Machiavelli would say that a prince who secures internal order has little to fear from external threats. A man who secures his inner state has little to fear from emotional tests. This is how attraction stabilizes, not through intensity, but through emotional governance, not through control of others, but through control of self. And once emotional security is established, desire no longer has to fight chaos. It has room to breathe. It deepens, it roots itself, because what feels safe can become powerful, and what feels powerful becomes difficult to replace. There is a lie that has been sold to men for generations, a comforting lie, a dangerous one, that being endlessly nice will be rewarded, that generosity without limit creates loyalty, that softness alone inspires love. Machiavelli would have laughed at this ideal, not because he despised kindness, but because he understood power, and power, when given freely without structure, loses all value. Men often believe that the more they give, the more they will be appreciated. More attention, more availability, more emotional labor, more sacrifice. Yet the result is almost always the opposite. Respect erodes desire, weakens authority, disappears, not because women are ungrateful, but because human nature does not respect what has no cost. Machiavelli warned princes never to be overly generous, because generosity that empties the treasury forces weakness later, and weakness invites contempt in relationships. The currency is not gold, it is attention, time, and emotional energy. When a man spends it recklessly, when he gives without discernment, he teaches others that his resources are infinite, and infinite resources are never valued. Obvious niceness is predictable, and predictability without strength breeds indifference. A man who always agrees, who never challenges, who never withholds, is not seen as kind, he is seen as manageable. Controlled strength, on the other hand, commands presence. It is kindness that has edges, warmth that is chosen, generosity that is selective. Machiavelli believed that mercy must be administered wisely, because mercy without limits dissolves authority. The same applies here. A man who is kind because he must be liked is not acting from strength, he is acting from fear, and fear is always visible. Women sense this immediately, not through logic, but through feeling. They feel when kindness is offered freely, and they feel when it is offered strategically. Strategic does not mean manipulative, it means intentional. A ruler who pardons everyone destroys the law. A man who forgives everything destroys boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are proof of self-respect, and self-respect is magnetic. Machiavelli understood that power is maintained through balance. Too much force creates rebellion, too much softness creates disorder and attraction. The balance is controlled strength, the ability to be warm without being weak, to be giving without being desperate, to be present without being consumed. This is why men who are endlessly accommodating often lose influence. Their behavior communicates that their own needs are secondary. And when a man treats himself as secondary, others follow. His lead. Niceness becomes background noise, taken for granted, ignored. Controlled strength interrupts this pattern. It introduces tension, not conflict, but polarity. A man with controlled strength does not rush to fix everything. He does not over-explain. He does not immediately give what has not been earned. He observes, he decides, he acts. Machiavelli advised rulers to distribute rewards sparingly, so that gratitude remains alive in relationships. The same law applies. When affection is given with intention, it carries weight. When it is given compulsively, it dissolves. Many men fear that restraint will be seen as coldness. But restraint, when calm, is confidence. It says, I choose, I am not ruled by impulse. I do not need to prove my value through excess. Women do not seek men who overwhelm them with giving. They seek men who can give without losing themselves. This distinction is subtle but decisive. A man who can say no, who can disappoint without panic, who can hold his ground without anger, signals strength. And strength makes kindness meaningful. Machiavelli believed that being feared was safer than being loved, not because fear was ideal, but because fear was reliable in attraction. Fear is not the goal, but reliability is. Controlled strength creates reliability. A woman knows where the man stands. She knows he will not collapse. She knows his kindness is real, because it is not automatic. This creates respect, and respect is the soil where desire grows. Obvious niceness seeks approval. Controlled strength commands it silently. One begs to be chosen, the other allows choice to come. This is why men who pull back slightly, who stop overgiving, who stop proving, often see attraction increase, not because women enjoy deprivation, but because value has returned to the exchange. Machiavelli never trusted excess, he trusted moderation. Guided by power, a man who understands this stops performing goodness and starts embodying strength. He is still kind, but his kindness has direction. He is still generous, but his generosity has limits, and limits do not repel, they define. This is the paradox. Most men never grasp that restraint can feel safer than indulgence, that firmness can feel more comforting than compliance, because behind controlled strength there is certainty, and certainty is rare. A man who possesses it needs no grand gestures, no constant reassurance, no excessive giving. His presence alone carries weight, and weight is what makes kindness unforgettable.